Yo, what's up guys, Jimmy here. I just hit 99 sailing, and as far as I know, I was the first Ironman to finish a speed efficient boat. Tonight is marking 1 week after the release of sailing. We have actually done almost 600 trial completions of Gwyneth Glide at this time. I chose to build all of my upgrades for my boat, as well as chart the entire ocean before we even had hit 99. We were thinking the maintenance this morning might include the Horizon's Lure 2.5% flat passive XP buff, but this seems to be delayed. Now, I wanted to make this video now because one, the push to 99 has ended, but now the race to 200 mil has begun. And I think our primary focus has been time trials. I have a lot of knowledge that I've kind of captured, and I wanted to share quite a bit of that, just for some context, credentials, if you will. Our best Rosewood time right now is 5:20. I was looking because I thought I hit a 5:18, but we definitely have a 5:20, which we believe is 21 seconds behind the efficient maximum, at least based on the current routing that is being used. And I put together a list of like 5 or 6 tips here that are hopefully going to help you improve your times on your own time trials. We did quite a lot of the other two, but when we ran Temper Tantrum, a lot of it was already solved because of the alpha and beta. But when we got to the Jive, we managed to, when we got there, only one person had even completed Marlin, and I think we only really grinded Shark, so I don't really feel super qualified to talk about that one specifically, but I'll try and mention some of the details around that as well as they apply to all of the courses. All right, tip number 1, always finish your runs. We have this idea of perfection, but there is a free completion reward for every single time trial, for every single ranking. So if you want to get good XP per hour, just remember that when you reset, you're really doing 2 things that are horrible. You're not only resetting all of that time and immediately losing it and then causing, complete loss of the actual time that you put into that first trial, but you're also making it so that you don't know the end of the course. Think of it this way: when you're a beginner, you're gonna struggle at every piece of the puzzle, right? And the later parts of the puzzle deserve just as much attention as the early ones, so make sure you actually focus on, okay, well, I messed up room 1 and 3, but this is an 18 room puzzle. Like Gwyneth Glide is massive, right? And every room has its own tech, and each room needs to be practiced, and each room can make, it can break your run, right? You need to have all the movement for every room done eventually. As you work through that, you can kind of dissect, okay, I struggle with this turn specifically. Is it because my bearing is incorrect, or I'm coming at this from a bad angle, or am I boosting at the wrong time? A lot of these things can play out, but just make sure you try and look at completion. It's very rarely worth it to reset a run. There are some weird circumstances where it might be, but in general, finish your run. Number 2, fixate on consistency. The best XP per hour actually comes from consistently getting good times, not just pushing for personal records. If you're only landing tech maybe say 15% of the time, and you're trying to get like a specific qualifier, that might be fine for something like, maybe Swordfish or Shark, but once you get to Marlin, you really should start thinking in terms of how do I actually get my average time down, rather than just, my best time. There's certain tech that I struggled with, particularly recently since I upgraded to this Rosewood boat. There was tech that I was doing before. For example, there's a zigzag with these 4 crates in the middle of Gwyneth Glide, and I think it was much easier on the Cam 4 hold because you have this like 4 tick. It does have to be kind of tick perfect. There's like maybe 3 or 4 different ways you could get them all. But I think on the Rosewood hole, I did like 8 or 9 attempts and I didn't get it a single time. The boosting component really plays in, and there's a lot of variables. But my general rule to myself was that it was actually much better to just eat a second every single time until I get really, really good at this. And then eventually, if I really want to optimize that thing that I was really bad at, I'll deal with that later. But try and prioritize, okay, I have these issues. Let's see if I can just solve those really bad issues and then bring my average times down, right? So you get more completions per hour and more XP. Number 3, prioritize your ability to learn. The route is more important than the tech. For example, pathing, meaning how you navigate between different crates, different portals, etc., as well as boost consumptions, right? For the things like the wind catcher, the crystal extractor, these are all major components to how you get efficient XP. Many people will actually stick to a route that is inefficient and often harder because maybe some, thing in their head, like I want to try and beat this thing myself. I was in this position when I did Jubbly Jive, and for whatever reason, like I think I had a lot of fun pushing it. I'm like, I'm gonna do this with my oak sails. I didn't really need to focus on that. Like I should have been using the best tech, right? In the end, like there's a lot of people who have solved routes, right? Try and use a really good route. Find the best route you can. I would highly advise just trying to be kind of creative with this. If you ever feel that you need to change what you're doing, there's likely someone out there who's already solved that problem, and see what's out there and try and start there. Number 4, work on improving your boat control whenever you can. There are many tick perfect types of movements. One that I will mention, I call it a glance. I'll say that often on my stream. It's basically the situation where you are next to an objective and all you have to do is effectively side swipe it and go back to the bearing that you were previously on. The idea with a glance is that it keeps you on the heading that you originally were on, so that way if you want to line something up, you can then glance off to grab an objective like a crate. And often you can use this to hit a portal. You could do it, to start out a pathing so that you can kind of what I call pre-cook, where we basically line up a certain series of crates or make sure that the route's in, the proper positioning, because like the pathing that you have is all predetermined by where your boat's at, right? So you need to get your boat to the correct location to then get to your next objective. So often you have to use the time that you have ahead of objectives to kind of build out your situation, make sure that it's actually properly set up. When you're in these situations where you don't have anything to do, like play around with your boat, try and move it, see when you can get it in the tick and off the tick, because there is different types of movement based on where your boat is. These are all based on the tick system, and you just really need to feel it out. There's a lot of practice. I have a lot of this to learn myself. I think that's one of our bigger issues, is understanding how these ticks really work for sailing and how like the subdivisions work for all the different positionings that you can have going into a different situation. Number 5, the crystal extractor and wind catcher are a major part of your XP, particularly because boosting is so important. And this is likely the number one reason I see people complaining about feeling slow, like their game is wrong or they're doing something incorrectly, but they're not sure what. Right? And I've seen this quite a bit in my, even like my clan chat. I see people talking about it pretty much everywhere, even like in game, like how are you going this fast? How are you doing these things? And often it has to do with your pathing. Your pathing is a big issue, but I find that a lot of people do not realize that they are unboosted at a given time, or that they're completely out of boost and they aren't aware. So I personally got the Gale Catcher. This was like not like the highlight of my thing because I was so lucky at Frost Dragons, but I did get my 5 Swift Albatross feathers to get 1 additional boost storage slot, right? The Gale Catcher gives you an additional boost. The idea is that there are certain corner wind motes that you may need if you only have the Wind Catcher, because you're going to need that boost. You're going to need to pop a wind boost right before that and then carry that forward. But with the ability of stacking those wind motes with the Gale Catcher, that can often give you a huge advantage by selectively choosing your boosts, right? But in general, if you want to push these times that people are talking about, you need to be boosted nearly 100% of the time. So definitely work on your boosts and make sure that's a major focal point. Because I saw some pretty big lifts. Like I used to think I could only get a 640 with my camphor hull. And then by like run 50, I realized I could do a 620. I remember watching the Red Eye Jedi video about, boosting tech, and I saw a couple of the turns he was making, and I made a couple changes, and like literally 20 runs later, I got my Marlin. Try and conserve your boost when you can. And remember that if you are out of boost, trimming your sails and consuming that boost give you a good chunk of XP. So it's not the end of the world, but try and make sure that you are trimming if it's available. But remember that if you see the word trim your sails, that means you are playing inefficiently for a time trial. Like it's just the reality of how these things work, because that means that you had a period of being unboosted, and that means you're several seconds behind likely of what you could have been otherwise performing at. Final note is that I highly recommend always upgrading your boat whenever you have a speed option available. Most of the upgrades that matter are just for the skiff, right? Because it is strictly tied to Barracuda time trials. Now, if you want to upgrade your sloop with these other things, that's important, like maybe having your AFK set up with a double hook, or getting a combat set up with maybe a good keel. There's a couple different ways to approach it. Some people are just like safe spotting right now. It's kind of hard to say what exactly is the meta, because there's different approaches. You can get good XP from port tasks. There's different things, but I do recommend using your fastest boat. My rosewood hull on my skiff is literally at max speed, so I am able to use this for literally everything. It was not a super expensive boat. At the end of the day, you have your hull, you have your sails, and then you have like your qualifying stuff, like if you can go through Crystal Flecked Waters or your Eternal Brazier for the Frozen Sea. And these things kind of are more important than literally every other upgrade as far as I'm concerned. So remember, base speed is going to come from your hull. Some hulls do not give an upgrade. For example, Ironwood looks cool, but it's no different than Camphor outside of some durability, right? And then your boost duration will be a real thing, because that will help you have less downtime. And technically that makes trimming your sails better. Like when I have a rosewood hull, it's actually much better to trim because I've only lost like 4 or 5 seconds. And I gotta think a better base XP amount as well. So make sure you prioritize those. I think that's going to conclude the tips video, guys. I hope these tips do help improve your times. It took me like 185 times with my camphor hull to even beat the Marlin run of Gwyneth. So don't feel like you have to give up just because you're struggling with it. Make sure you keep practicing. I will leave you guys today with my PR on my Rosewood upgraded decked out boat that we hit today, a 520. If you guys have any questions, or comments. Feel free to drop them. Last but not least, if you like the video, maybe drop the like, you know? Drop a sub. I don't mind. It won't ruin my day, you know, if you miss it. You know, it's cool. We're good. We're all good here. But if you made it this far, I appreciate you, and I hope you enjoy the video. But yeah, that's gonna be it, guys. See you out there. Onwards and upwards. Race to 200 mil. Let's get it. I need sleep. Okay, good warm-up. These 2 runs don't count. I'm not gonna count them for today's XP. I really should try and stop hitting the wall in this room. When I have runs like this where I don't hit it, it does feel significantly better. There's so many little speed tricks like that. Quick selfie. Beautiful. I still have like half of this nasty Pop-Tart left. Like reminds me of a Nutri-Grain bar. I don't know, something's off about it. Really good turn there. One extra turn bearing there. Otherwise, great. Amazing. This is record base for a few reasons. Man, 256 is crazy. For here? I feel like our turns are insanely good this one. Being a bit more preemptive. This should work just fine. Watching wind. For one mayor, it's pretty good. A little wide here, it's okay. Definitely still in PR base. Quick south click here. 449, oh my gosh. Considered a minor mistake, maybe. PR. A little bit of rest goes a long way. It's a 520.